So yeah, for today, I think um, the main things we'll want to discuss are kind of our in-flight RFCs. I think we've got a couple just to kind of review. I think the first being this the restructuring of our modules. Um, I've attached some uh, general diagram for how we want to restructure things, but the high level overview here is that we don't want to make each implementation, I guess, have to bring in all of the implementation or every user to pull in all implementations, especially as we expand maybe the scope of XTable to include new table formats, maybe something like Paimon, or if someone from that project's interested in contributing, then you can imagine we're just gonna get bigger and bigger and bigger. So kind of proactively, we want to split these things out into each format having its own module. So yeah, that's kind of a high level there. If I encourage people to please go take a look and comment on the structure. We want to there's some active discussion there as well. I think probably the most important thing is that we are going to be kind of proactively adding some kind of versions as well. So like for Iceberg v2 versus v3, I think was an initial discussion item we had a while back, Ashwin and myself. So that way we can kind of control um, for future iterations, keep things slim even for that, and just have slightly different implementations when you load the service, basically. And those can share like kind of common structure. So I'll put up some updates as well. I think I just brainstormed a little bit better naming, I guess, with Vanish this past week for yeah, how do we want to like nest these folders and stuff as well, just so the project is navigable for newcomers as well. Like there's not just like 20 top level folders, put like one module folder and then sub modules with um, common module. If there's shared logic between V2, V3 of Iceberg or something, we can kind of practically nest that as well. But yeah, I guess for the sake of time, I guess, did people have questions on that? Or if not, I think the deletion vectors one is a really interesting RFC we can review as well.
So just a quick comment, like I think first of all, big thanks for starting this one. This is no-brainer, extremely important, the modularization. It is going to help a lot, at least for our deployment as well. And just on your comment that having one folder with all the, I mean, there is no problem with having too many folders at the root level. A lot of projects have it, and it's very clean. Simple is better. So no issues with that one.
Yeah, like my thinking there is would it make more sense to have so maybe a concrete example is that we have this XTable hoodie utilities folder, which is basically some extensions to hoodie APIs that hoodie exposes that allow you to integrate XTable into like this like streamer class that's in there. Like you can just sync at the end of every commit. So more specific to hoodie in that sense, and like even outside of the general syncing logic. Would it make sense if we have if we have an XTable hoodie, it's called V1, or an XTable hoodie V2, and XTable utilities, and all of these things? Does it make more sense? In my head, I was thinking, does it make more sense to plug those all into you have an XTable hoodie top level directory, and then underneath it you have like an XTable hoodie conversion V1, or I guess Iceberg, we could do like XTable Iceberg conversion V1, and then, or sorry, it's already on V2 and V3 under the same kind of parent, and then like an XTable Iceberg common that, is really like a jar that like, most people won't have to interact with, hopefully, but, exists to share common things like schema conversions or I don't know, any sort of util along those more partition conversions and things that aren't changing across the different versions of the spec. I was just thinking that if you like, once I started thinking about how maybe this would be structured with the V1s, V2s, you got to about 3 modules per format. If there's 2 versions, like a common and then a first iteration, second iteration. And then if we have 4 formats in the future, yeah, then you're up to 12 modules without even including the core and API and a lot of all the catalog stuff, by the way, is each having its own like kind of have like a AWS module with the glue code and like a HMS module with the HMS sync logic as well. So it'll start adding up quite quickly was my concern there.
Got it. Got it. Yeah, I think the main, I'm okay with this. Sounds good to me. The main was the API and the core. Cleaning up that will be quite involved because of the class dependencies we have right now at the test suite. So let me know, and I'm also will chime in on the PRs which you create, but incrementally might be something which we would be better to do that way so that it doesn't shock everyone all at once.
Yeah, I posted, I have a draft PR up as well. It is large, yes. So we can definitely, now that like the final picture is starting to come together, we can definitely break that out. Yeah, pulling out the testing stuff especially is an easy task, right? Just to do on its own. So once we have like the, I guess, general structure laid out, I can start pulling this apart into separate tasks as well.
I have more of a question. So I was just checking very quickly the proposal. You mentioned someone mentioned performance as well. Do you plan to measure anything or either manually or have something automated for this also to to basically measure this if it is that critical or that's really out of the scope right now of that RFC? More of a general question, by the way. And okay, no other answering, but the reason also why I'm asking this is that I don't know, depending on how you are gonna execute XTable, right? This might be important. So if really one goal is obviously to make it easier to plug other table formats and so on, but another goal is really about this performance. Maybe it's something you can measure, and also you can point out once the work is done, right? I mean, yeah.
I think it's a good idea, and I think I added one point on the performance because once you have too many classes in the boot path, then it takes time for the functions or wherever it is deployed to start XTable library even before conversion. So that is a good point. I think we could measure it and at least publish those numbers.
Yeah, at least from the angle that I was looking at it, that wasn't an original goal. But is it just that your performancing is just an like initial start time for the like Java app kind of itself because it's very large right now.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think we can
it
probably
takes
run
time.
that. Yeah, to see. I think publishing. I mean, I've already found like a fair amount of stuff to shave off, even from just the general like hoodie one. Um, Iceberg one's already pretty small, so we can definitely, I think, do a little bit of that. I'm not sure. I'll see how long if it dramatically speeds things up, but I'm um, in the cases where we have to load Spark onto the class path for if Delta's involved, I think that kind of dominates the size there, unfortunately.
True. I can go next if no one has any more questions on this one.
No, I do have a question about how you manage to complete the tasks. So is it that everyone has a specific issue to implement, or is it like you share the issues and everyone like complete a small part of the issue, and then you collect the results or is it like from start to from the beginning to the end, only one person does one issue? Is it one issue per person, or is it collaborative? That's my question. Thanks.
Yeah, I think I think the issues kind of come in different varieties, as you'll probably see. So like for since these RFCs were proposing more functionality, there's much more discussion and kind of upfront planning. And then when we have a smaller tasks, like some issues are just purely bug fixes and stuff like that. Like those are, I think for a lot of the issues that are more code development, we try to keep them small in scope so they can be tackled by an individual. But the issues themselves can be many issues to like one overarching goal. Like I think if you look at, we can see in some of the deletion vectors issues that Astron has already created, like you'll see it's broken down into many steps, kind of our projected steps that we need to do to complete the goal of adding support for deletion vectors. So I think from a general guideline, we want to try to keep taking that approach where we break things down smaller tasks so we can have more hands helping out towards our common goals here.
And on that, one strategy I've been following, and I'll share generally here, is that when someone puts a review comment on a PR, sometimes it's not feasible to incorporate in the same PR. So what I do is, instead of putting a to-do in the code somewhere or just leaving it in the comments, I create a subtask from that response, and that is very helpful because it helps others to add code, follow up, and see how the feature is developing and what are the important features we have to address before it is shipped.
Okay, I understand. Thanks.
Yeah, so I can start the deletion vector work. I mean, the RFC is out, and there are 2 PRs which I have already created on this. Because there are multiple formats involved and different formats are different versions which have different support. Initially, what I've done is I've taken Delta as the source for deletion vector and Iceberg V2 as the target for deletion vectors. In the RFC, I'm describing what does the Delta deletion vector look like without going into too much details because that's outside the scope of this document. We're trying to focus on what changes are coming in XTable and how do we generalize it and how will it support different kinds of formats and different versions of different table formats, and those things are incorporated. And there are test cases, there are sample files which are getting created in those PRs. So I'm happy to answer any questions people may have on that one.
Ashwin, I have one question. So I just wanted to understand more about it, actually, the delta and the deletion vector that you're working on. So is there a RFC already available which I can read? I mean, I could see the PR. I mean, you have added the details, but I think RFC would have more details. So the link, if you can share.
I'll share it after, or maybe let me try to share it now. The RFC is there, yeah, and Tim and others have reviewed it and they've added the comments as well.
Okay, yeah, chef, please share.
Let me add
Thank
it to
you.
the agenda doc as well. So I think if folks here should all take a look because it will be like probably on the more interesting things were happening. Restructuring is great, but not super technical. This also gives a great summary, high level overview of just like what is the deletion vector and like how does it get incorporated into the different like source formats. It gives a good overview, especially of the Delta side. So please, folks, take a look.
And I think in the RFC, I'm intentionally just giving a very, very high level overview of both Delta and Iceberg because this is a broader topic and it's not feasible to include everything here.
Yes, sure. Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing.
And one of the important principles I followed in the implementation, in the sample implementation, the PR, is that instead of reading the generated deletion vectors directly as a Parquet file or as an Avro file or whatsoever will come, I'm using the table format utilities directly to read the file format, but to read the deletion vector. So what it means is that behind the scenes, the table formats tomorrow can choose whatever magic number they want to use, whatever verification they want to use. Anything could be done by the table formats. XTable wouldn't care about it. It will request Iceberg, for example, to provide a stream of offsets of those deletion vector, ordinals of the deletion vector. And Iceberg in turn will do the verification, it will do the file format reading and so on. And we should not, it will, XTable can evolve as it doesn't have to individually look at the file format or the nuances of how different bytes are organized within the file format. Okay.
I just have a kind of logistical questions here. So right now you're targeting doing a delta to iceberg to prove out, I guess, the first round of things. Are you planning on adding more, I guess, support for the flip side, like iceberg positional deletes to delta as follow up, or will it just be this one way? And kind of just, yeah, from your own capacity. I mean, we can create more tasks as well. I guess it's more just about your own
Yeah,
availability.
I wanted to. It's just the how much time I will get. So I will not currently assign the task to myself so that it blocks others from contributing. So any contribution is more than welcome. But if we don't, if others are not stepping in, I'll own those, and I can contribute that because, as most of you know, Fabric uses XTable internally. And for that bidirectional conversion, so it would need support for both.
Okay, yeah, let's make sure I think I'll try to finish up reviewing the recent changes to the updates to the RFC, and hopefully let's make sure we make a bunch of issues so we can, yeah, if other people want to do them, I think this will be a great place for people to contribute. And then I guess the only other thing maybe that's worth discussing is what do we do when we don't support yet these deletion vectors? I think that's maybe the only other big question on that RFC. I don't know if we want to just fail. Like right now we have, for example, the ability to read a merge on read table from Hoodie, and we just kind of log out that your recent updates will not be reflected. Merge on read table type of thing in the Hoodie side. And do we want to, I guess, fail fast or hard if you say, hey, I get reading deletion vectors, but you can't sync them to whatever format, or add a flag that says, like, I'm okay with that. And then we'll pick the default value for that flag. Both.
Yeah, a couple of ways to do this, right? One is you could go write out the Hoodie log files. That's one way to do it. The other way is to sorry, I should do. Do you want to say something, Shun?
No, I finish your thought. I'll add after that.
No, so I think So here's the thing: the MOR implementation actually pretty different from a design standpoint for Hoodie. And again, making Hoodie to you can write to Hoodie and then doing generating just the deletion vectors for Delta and or like V2 or the deletion vectors in Iceberg and Delta could be like okay, right? But even there, I think Hoodie needs to support a mode where we need to turn updates into deletes plus inserts. We don't do that. We actually have support for partial updates, which I think in my opinion probably much better at handling updates. But all in all, for now it's I think okay to throw an error, like have it not implemented. I think in Hoodie over time we will introduce this mode where we will have a config on the right side where it will encode updates as deletes plus inserts as opposed to encoding updates as updates. When we do that, I think we can kind of like figure out how we do the mismatch. Without that, you cannot really, like, we can't really translate. right? So they kind of diverge at that point. Second thing I wanted to bring up was V2 versus V3. So V2 basic, I don't know about Fabric, maybe Fabric supports V2, but Snowflake does not support V2 with row level deletes. BigQuery does not. So who actually uses V2? So my question is, should we just be focused on V3 instead? That's basically V3, as I understand, is basically Delta Lake, right? So there's no delete files. Instead, there are deletion vectors in Iceberg as well. So I don't know how everybody feels about that. I'm just questioning whether V2's like throwaway work. Do we know anything about it? Is Snowflake going to support V3? Uh, does anybody have any insights on Iceberg V2 versus V3? What's the...
Yeah, I can. So I've been following that path, and there are two, three things to notice. First of all, V3 is not out yet. So Iceberg V3 will become official in a few months, and then people will take their own time to support it, right? And your observation is correct that they use roaring bitmaps like Delta Lake, but it's not the same file. Iceberg uses puffin file, whereas Delta Lake uses their own .bin format file. So that will be different. Anyways, but the point remains there that currently there are many large deployments of Iceberg which don't even use delete vectors. They don't write delete vectors. They do read delete vectors. So most of like Snowflake does support reading deletion vectors. Same as with I think BigQuery also supports the reading. So if there is a table which is created externally, like suppose XTable creates a table for these consumers, then those engines will read deletion vectors for consistency. And that also connects to the first question you had. And in fact, I agree with you that we should throw an error. What we do currently is that we say that we are doing a snapshot conversion. Actually, it would result in inconsistent number of rows returned, because snapshot only means that it will list all the data files which are active at that particular point of time, but it is not reducing the number of rows which are soft deleted by the deletion vector, position deleted deletion vector. So I think throwing error is the right thing to do anyway, and that is for we should fix that bug in XTable based on my understanding, and I'm open to correction there. But V2 regarding V2 and V3, I think at least in the near future, it will not be throwaway work. People read it, and it's a good start point for us. And that's
Okay. I'm not opposed to just asking, because V2 has been out for a while as well, and same thing. I get very similar kind of anecdotal kind of feedback from NVIDIA, from AWS, everywhere, that V2, like MOR, there are not many V2 users. That's kind of why I brought this up. But yeah, I think overall I'm fine.
right. And just to motivate the problem, right? We know in this case, Delta users do use MOR a lot.
Okay,
For
that's
example, all Fabric engines write deletion vectors.
okay.
So now suppose you are trying to interoperate between Fabric and a third engine, which is Iceberg, or say any other engine which consumes Fabric tables in non-Delta format, then they would need to get this translation.
Sounds good. Okay. And it's a good point about the puffin versus the bin thing. I was just going based on something I heard, but that seems like another reason.
Yeah, I think Jesus and I were talking about it. Puffin format, at least to me, looks like a very collection of blobs. So it doesn't enforce anything, doesn't validate anything. I wish they had used something which is more type instead of a blob.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So yeah. Okay. Anyway, so I just pasted. If you go to the Iceberg section, it says excluding the following features, and still row level deletes are not supported in Snowflake, at least. But yeah. Okay. I think there are enough engines to go ahead and do this. Makes sense. Right.
Right. And if there are no other, I guess, questions around the deletion vectors, just for the sake of time, can I move down the list a bit? Um, for the access policy synchronization, this was a kind of topic that came up off of the catalog syncing. Vanish has like shared with me for a little review before, like an initial draft of what some data models will look like for how we can try to translate some permissions and stuff between your different catalogs. I don't know, Hive, Glue, I guess Big Lake, maybe Snowflake, those types of things. So I guess be on the lookout for that as probably our RFC4 in the coming weeks. Just, yeah, we'll make sure we have that system kind of drawn out for how things relate to each other. But I'll let him, I guess, present more on that next community sync. And we also had this Parquet sync tool, utility tool. I don't think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't know if the author of this is, there's a open PR for getting it started, but there hasn't been a lot of movement on that right now. So I think we can kind of skip over that for now if people want to discuss some more um, in-flight stuff. So, um, right, I think we had, there was one open PR I had wanted to discuss the author. Let me just check. Though I think we need to fix the meeting invite. I guess it looks like from the one before. Uh, we have some changes in this PR, the 569 around how the metadata actually is getting stored. So there's some for like Hoodie, for example, every commit has a extra metadata, like at the actual commit level for some information about, what was like the last time synced from your source. This PR adds fixes, I think, some of our usage of like the Iceberg API. I think right now we're storing it at like a table metadata level, whereas before, it needs to be more closer to a commit level metadata. So it has some changes there and compatibility, kind of backwards compatibility, so we don't have to force ourselves to do a full snapshot, but it should also give us some nice benefits there of not just we can actually see the history of what was committed a bit better, and also better sync as well if possible when we detect a rollback in the source system, that we can leverage a rollback in the target as well. So kind of reflecting the operations. Instead of right now, what we do is we kind of a naive, like, let me recompute the difference of these things. So hopefully it'd be a bit more efficient in this use case. And yeah, I think, like I said, it has that added benefit of just like actual better tracking. We're gonna, I think, also considering adding an optional field there of the source target, who was the target writer format. So just a little bit more context as well in there, so we can hopefully like better debug as these things, maybe more people are using this in production. This is being done by contributor Daniel. So I think I've been kind of chatting with him over the new Slack channel about getting this into a finals mergeable state. And then Ringa, I think you had mentioned you wanted to discuss this
Yeah,
continuous sync PR.
yeah. Like one of the customer, they're looking for they want to generate the metadata continuously. Okay, they have some source table, hoodie tables. Okay, they want to convert it into like a iceberg table. Okay, they want to continuously generate when a new hoodie data is generated, right? So they want to see from iceberg as well.
Okay, and is this like I implemented this kind of quickly. Is this basic loop kind of, will that work for them? It just kind of runs every, I forget what it is. Like you can just configure some scheduled
Yeah,
interval.
yeah, we can. I will ask on that one, schedule interval related. Okay. Yeah, I will come back on that one. But they want feature this kind of feature. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I can clean that up then. I think we have some, and to make sure it also works with our catalog syncing stuff, that as well would probably be interesting if they want to surface those tables as read-only tables in Glue or something like that. Yeah, we got like only a few minutes left, so I did want to make sure we have time for this last item from Vinod. I think this is important for us all to discuss.
I'm sorry, I have a question. How maybe this question is a little bit anticipated, but how different is it the conversion of Hoodie and Delta to XTable? How different is that from conversions of Parquet Avro to XTables? And how could you let's say draw a different stable in what regards the processing or the metadata conversion? I don't know if it is clear as a question. I just want to know the similarity and differences so that the coding process will be assessed, whether it will be easy or more complex or from scratch, or is it like we could we could look at the past implementations to complete with the Evros and the other formats. Thanks.
Yes. Yeah, so generally the structure of XTable is that you have sources and targets, and there's this intermediate state in there. So if you can read something into this intermediate state, you can sync it hypothetically to any of the targets. That's the vision. So if you have just like a bunch of Parquet files, for example, if you can get a view of what Parquet files make up your table, that's like your internal state that you're defining, and you can get like a schema for that, then it will sync to Iceberg, Delta, Hoodie, all the same.
I think what Salim was asking, maybe just to clarify, what you're suggesting is that is in addition to converting the table format, also convert the file format, which is so Iceberg, Delta, these are table formats, they are metadata only, and they are smaller in size, whereas Parquet and Avro, these are data files, which are potentially in gigabytes, terabytes. And XTable currently does not handle those, and we don't intentionally do it. Is there where you're going?
Yes.
Yeah, I think it's a broader topic, and we should connect. Like we should start a discussion on that one because that's of interest, but it has a lot of challenges. So why don't you, if it's okay, or you can start a discussion thread and we can chime in on that one. It's a longer, broader discussion, I guess.
Yeah, sure.
Thanks.
And I have one question. Are we going to start this discussion over the same Hoodie channel or some different sort of Slack channels?
GitHub discussions.
Okay.
Doing the discussions in GitHub is great because then we can link the issues and it'll like link back and reference each other.
Okay. Thanks. Vinod?
Right. So just kicking off this topic, I think I would like to just like have a chat about what's our path to kind of getting better as a project to a level that we can, go off in for graduation. My personal experience with this just been with Hoodie, what we had to kind of like I know there's like a lot more complexity to this, but at a very high level, we need to show a lot of users. At this point, I think we have like two large users in this call itself, but then having more non-vendor users who are using it in the wild and that kind of thing can help. And then there was this project maturity matrix that we should start filling out and scoring ourselves on where we are right now and kind of fix steadily. At least with Hoodie, what we did was we used to kind of like see, you should use that to track how we are maturing and then actually even communicate that with our modeling reports. And more releases, obviously. Personally, for me, I think just making it more and more easy for people to use XTable, just the distribution aspects of it, or getting like a lot more cleaner on that will help us actually scale more as a top level project. So I just wanted to open this up and see what we can do here. And at all the recent work around, and the other part, maybe I should write out as like the vision for this as a top level project. What does that look like? We also need to paint a broader vision, right? So there is all the format level stuff that, as the previous conversation shows, probably a lot more work to do even just around the format level stuff. But then we are doing the catalog sync now, and then there's like all the other things. So yeah, so just wanted to open this up, open floor. Just wanted to see how we can make a plan. I don't know if it's aggressive or not, but like, do you all feel like we can put some progress towards and try and graduate by summer? Is that like a realistic goal, or are we too far away from that, or what does everybody think?
Can give a couple of 2 cents if it helps. I think the main thing at this stage, I would say, so the first release was already out, right? I think having a regular release cadence, that I think it's really what we're aiming at that point, could help a lot. That for sure. And again, first release is out, so I think from now on it should be much easier. Maybe the next one is gonna be a little bit still hard, but from now on it should be easier. Because of I mean, for others that maybe do not have the full context. I mean, first release, there is a lot of dependencies, and you need to figure out the right way to work with the licenses and to not package anything that you shouldn't package and so on. And I think Vinicius did a great work there. So I think things are in much better shape now. That one I'm not so concerned. You mentioned about usage, Vinod. I think I think growing the community is for sure the one that we are missing the most right now. And I'm very excited. I didn't know how many people were gonna join. I couldn't join the previous meeting, but I'm excited to see quite a few people here. I would say also, Tim, you mentioned, for instance, some of these pull requests that are coming from people that have not contributed much and so on. If as a community, what can we do? I would say in those cases, if we are following the PRs and collaborating with them, like, being super proactive, helping them to split it into smaller contributions, so you see the volume, and if you see really a case of someone that is going to contribute long term, kind of, again, trying to make it welcome, so they can jump into being committers, right? And you mentioned also something interesting about the direction, Binod. I don't think we're gonna be able to figure out right now. But one interesting thing maybe, and I think we maybe just passed 1 year, or we're about to pass 1 year since it was really accepted into the incubator, is having an annual status of the project discussion in the mailing list, where people, we start the discussion, one of us, one person in the community, and people can reflect on the status, right? What happened on the previous year, and also on where they want the project to be moving towards, right? I think, again, that is something that, for instance, we used to do we do in CalSite every year. It's combined with some other stuff because we have a rotating PMC chair and so on, which, I don't think we are there yet here. But the point is that I think it's very good because again, anyone, not only committers, PMC members, anyone can really chime in and see and say what they are excited about, things that maybe can be improved and so on, right? So again, a few ideas, and all that helps, right? Because all that, then you go to the incubator, you need to make the case, right? And seeing all that engagement is what really helps towards graduation. And just the last thing, you mentioned date. I mean, I don't know if we are far or not. I mean, if it could happen by summer. I mean, maybe it really depends on how we doing all these aspects, especially community growth. I think they are going to pay a lot of attention to that because they don't want to have a project that basically is kind of lingering there and that there is a risk that nobody's going to really maintain, right? So yeah.
Got it. I think that does cover this a fair bit. Anybody has any other thoughts here? Doing more things in the mailing list, I think, is probably like
Is it
so.
a project maturity matrix, something from ASF itself? Like,
Yeah, there is something. I for me, that at least like grounds us a little somewhat, right? It's not the end all of this, but at least just some kind of baseline around maturity. I think just filling out like a first version of this in the GitHub wiki or something may not be a bad idea. Um, and yeah, I have some thoughts on the community aspects of it, but I love to kind of just hear others' thoughts before this. Yeah, I agree with everything else that you mentioned.
I'm on mute. I'm not sure, Vinod, if you were referring to this one. It's kind of automatically generated. We're quite green, which I guess is good. But yeah, certainly there's some work to do.
Let me fish out the hoodie one. Then it's somewhere in our wiki.
So Jesus, while Vinod is looking for it, is this a criteria for graduation?
You mean the one that I just sent, or?
Yeah, clutch.
I think maybe some people look at it as I don't think, again, each project is gonna be kind of measured by its own kind of I don't know, in its own right and so on. So I don't think there is one way to go from incubator to top level, or a single way. I mean, but yeah, some people might look at these metrics just as a way to kind of as a proxy for health, right, for the project. Yeah, I remember, by the way, this one that people were referring to at some point in the incubator mailing list. I think that it reflects, if I remember correctly, again, whether things are on time, the cadence of the number of committers they were added, things along those lines, right? So yeah.
Correct.
Okay. There's only two oranges in our project. One is number of committers, and the other is
the other one, I think G, right? G is
age.
Yeah, status. But the status, I mean, that maybe I can I can update myself. I think in the status, this is the status. I guess it's the status for the incubator. In the incubator, that one it kind of has a list of tasks, and we did a lot at the very beginning, right? So there is not that much, but I mean, certainly it's something that maybe we could update once again. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think based on this, the main thing for us is to grow the grow more maintainers, grow more committers, and show that the like users and this kind of stuff, right? Because users also attract like contributors, right? So yeah, I agree. I think it's been a very different experience for me, this project, from like, let's say, even Kafka or Puri and all these things, because they're very user led initially. Right now, this one kind of started like there's a lot of vendors and like interest and stuff around this thing, but I think we need to get more contributors and actually energize this project as like a get more people showing up to kind of add contributions here and stuff. I think that's going to be the key thing, I feel. um, if we have that and if we can showcase them as well, I think we'll be on a good path. I think the other things are very fixable, right? I still feel we should like do the shading well and then get like bundles which are like usable. And my personal opinion has been that that stands in the way of uh it's kind of like hard for us to do it, right? How will users figure out how to shade properly and get it deployed? I think unless we hand all these things out, I think the adoption's kind of not going to go. So you probably have like a bunch of work around providing them convenience jars and making it really easy for people to run the sync themselves. And the users then become contributors because they'll hit a issue, they'll open a PR. That's generally how it's been, right? So I think we probably need to do a bunch of work around that. I feel.
I think, by the way, now that you mentioned about users, and this is some thought, and I know that it's a community, so I don't know if someone is like interested on something like this, but you have engines, right? I'm wondering if offering a better out of the box integration with some engine, I mean, whether it's a Spark or anything along those lines, um, uh, uh, could maybe also be a again good way of getting people kind of excited. I don't know. That's also another thought, right? Because it's like, hey, you don't see any more
Yeah.
this thing as something on its own, right? It's like, hey, maybe there is some integration again with Apache Spark or with any other open source project, right? Maybe I don't know. It's
Yeah. My could be. I think I would. I think actually that's a great idea. Eventually, I think that may be a really good place for XTable as a North Star, even as we work across catalogs and all these different permission translations, things like that. It's a good way to do it. But I think it's going to be like a long path to get there. Um, and just objectively, I think putting it within a so it's like the format, the Avro or these kinds of projects, right? The people don't interact with this as regularly as a developer because the usage is actually absorbed by the upper layers. So it'll also become a case of that, I think.
right.
Uh, um,
Yeah, why I was mentioning, and again, I'm not been following lately that much, but why I was mentioning is, hey, I remember in Hype, right, we had these hooks, kind of and I think in Spark you have kind of the same concept, right? Again,
yeah,
if you already implement kind of that interface, you make it much easier for someone to just say like, hey, let me try with this engine, right? Again, I was thinking along, again, this way maybe you drive a little bit more interest on or anything along those lines, because yeah, again, there are not many projects that can do what XTable are doing, that are again truly open source out there and so on. So yeah.
makes sense. Okay, cool. So good things to consider. I think let's just keep maybe talking through some of these things and see how we can make more progress. The other thing is, do we have established kind of protocols for the raising PR timely, like how quickly can somebody for example, there's a PR that everybody wants to get like eyes on, but if you're not hearing back, we agreed on things like that. Or I think we're out of time. Maybe we can take it offline. I'm talking about like we want to get the community involved, but also make progress. Balancing those in in the Apache way is something that we should figure out very well. Okay. All right, folks. I think we're out of time. We can follow this up.
Yeah, we are at time. I think, by the way, one general, but I think you know about this, Vinod, very well. But I think one general comment, I'll tell you, I was also chatting with Vinicius about this, was, you know, whenever there is a proposal, I think it's very useful to establish a timeline for the proposal. Like, hey, you know, we're going to be discussing this for the, or maybe at the beginning, no, but if you see things stale a little bit, like, hey, you know, if in 2 weeks or 1 week, whatever, something reasonable, right? Nobody raised any concern, we're going to move with this proposal. I think that helps a lot in open source in general, because, yeah, otherwise things might stale. And I agree with you. I mean, you want to keep momentum going, you want to, you know, you want to make the project evolve and so on. So that's a general, I think that has worked well for me in communities that I've seen in the past. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know if it makes sense. You think it makes sense? Yeah.
No, it makes complete sense. I think attaching a timeline, like a reasonable timeline that gives everybody a chance to respond, I think is the main thing. All right, cool. Thanks, folks. Isus, thanks for making it. I know this was a little difficult for you, but again, it's super appreciated.
No, love to see you guys. It's been a while.
All right.
Hey, team. Take care, guys. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.